what is the single phrase that captures the meaning of that bargain that was struck, that special way of self-governing in America? The phrase I like the best is that federalism is a mechanism for reconciling unity and diversity. Now, in the world, that's a heady purpose. And we have many federal systems and many devices that work like a federal system to reconcile the interests of different regions, different cultures, different ethnicities, with the need for unity of an economy, of a military force, of economic and information systems. I've spent a lot of my career as an academic. I've been in government and in academia, writing about and thinking about federalism, inspired originally, as I said, by many people, but Nelson Rockefeller chief among them. And the paper that I prepared for today, and there are some copies of it, you'll be happy to know I'm not going to read it. It's 11 pages long, and it is single space. But I am going to paraphrase it and read some quotes from it, and I did bring some copies of it, and for those who are particularly interested, there's more than I'm going to be able to cover. So let me start by quoting the man himself. It really is worth your time. Judy has a copy, to go back and read this little book. It expresses the exuberance of the man and of these ideas. And Nelson Rockefeller said, the federal idea for reconciling unity and diversity, and now I quote, is probably the supreme American contribution to the struggle of self-governing people to build political structures strong enough to secure order and freedom in their lives. Now that's kind of high-blown rhetoric, and some of the rhetoric in his speech is less high-blown. And let me quote again. I'm going to cite two more quotes from the book. Rockefeller talked about political scientists at the time in the 50s that said federalism is over. Only Rand McNally will care about federalism. And it is not over, as I'm going to argue. And Nelson Rockefeller said, in these lectures, he said, I issue a harsh retort to the people who say that federalism is languishing near death. He said, and I quote again, decisions vital to national well-being increasingly have been made at the circumference, the states, as well as the national center of political power. Now let me digress a little bit there to tell you what is the essence of my position and argument. Not everybody in the business agrees with me, but I know I'm right, which is that the federal system in our history has given energy and purpose and functions and ideas to government. Because some states, innovative states, Wisconsin, California, Michigan, New York, states that have been out front in the governmental process, come up with ideas to deal with problems. And those ideas are tested in the cauldron of an individual state. And then they diffuse to other states, pick up on them if they work, modify them, learn from them. And in some cases, as situations and conditions change in the world, and a word I like to use, they morph into national policies. So it isn't a matter of saying which is more important, states or national. Both are important. And over time, the fact that we have energy and activism at both levels, and indeed at multiple levels, has made government more active and has enhanced the government's role. In fact, and this is an irony, and this is an argument I like to get into, Republicans, Nelson Rockefeller, of course, was a Republican, and our kind of Republicans don't cut much ice anymore. But anyway, Republicans tend to be the defenders of federalism. Ronald Reagan used to be a great activist for federalism, cite the 10th Amendment, reserving powers to the states, and he meant that as a way of saying, don't do it in Washington. We're not going to do it. But in fact, if you read history, I believe, and think hard about this subject, federalism ought to be the idea that liberals should care about. Because federalism has, as I just said, made government get into more areas, develop new functions, work with new ideas. On the whole, federalism should be an active idea and theme for liberals, more so in my thinking about this big subject than conservatives. I want to read a third quote that makes a further very important point about the federal idea in American life from Nelson Rockefeller. This is, again, from the Godkin Lectures. And most of the literature on federalism is really dull. I am guilty of it as other people. But these lectures have some beat to them. Nelson Rockefeller said, federalism is a unique arena for citizens to learn about government, to learn to self-govern, to get their ideas into the world of public affairs at every level, federal, state, and I'm going to talk about local and nonprofit organizations, by the way, which use government money and are big, big players in domestic public affairs. In any event, Rockefeller said that federalism is a political adventure. He was an adventurer. It is no static thing, no dead definition, no dogmatic proclamation. He lambasted political aloofness in these lectures, and he talked about what he called the aversion to the rough and tumble of partisan politics, and said the very nature of a democratic process depends upon the active, intelligent, aggressive partisanship for its very life.